When we take into consideration the evolution of Lancool cases in general, I can only say that they are going in the right direction. Because right here we have Lian Li's Lancool 217, and it is going just right up there with Lancool 3. Actually, I can, apart from some minor parts that Lancool 3 has compared to this one, I'm really digging this case, and it's so versatile and it gives so much possibilities in general when we take into consideration the adjustment of the front fans, removing the side panel right here, even though the Lancool 3 had it more like a magnetic part, but regardless of that. And then we have this wooden accent which fits just so nice, it's unbelievable. Apart from that visual aspect and some minor kicks, which are of course acceptable, we have two additional fans here on the power supply shroud, and you can add the third one, which kind of generates more airflow for the GPU because, as you can see, the side panels on both sides, so the back side as well, has a perforated steel with fine mesh, so it increases the intake for the GPU. Even if you have it lower down like I do, because this motherboard has it much lower than usual, so it kind of goes into that segment where it gives better airflow for the GPU. Now, what's up with this case? And you've seen it on Computex last year, which was presented back then, but it's simple how you can manage this case and build inside. First and most important, you do have to have a proper cable management to hide everything here in the power supply shroud compartment so you can have the actual intake. Because if you just chuck your cables in the power supply shroud compartment, then you won't have that possibility to grab that additional air from the bottom. But regardless of that, what they did at the back, you have loads of Velcro ties, and that kind of give you a bit of a help when we're talking about reorganizing the cables at the back. Of course, on the side you have some sort of a combination of Velcro ties which give you an option to put them on two sides, and then in the middle for the 24-pin cable you have 4 Velcro ties that can easily hold the 24-pin cable without any problems. The cool thing also is for the EPS cables and for the rear fan you have some plastic clips that you just put the cables inside, and basically that's it. So I have to confirm what they stated. It combines aesthetics and performance, which is just outstanding. They picked up all the strengths from the previous models, cooling capabilities of Lancool 216 and the GPU cooling performance from 207, and that's really good because now we have this case which is just outstanding. So what we have right here is 5 pre-installed fans. Basically the only thing you need is an AIO at the top and that's it. On the front we have 2 large 170mm fans with a thickness of 30mm. Additionally, 2 120 reverse blades which are placed on the power supply shroud compartment as already stated, and these are all intake. And then we have an exhaust at the back which is 140mm fan, and that's basically it when we're talking about that. Now the 170 have a specific rubber grommet which give you an option to remount them. Now there are 2 modes. You have the default mode and you have the CPU mode. Now the default mode is when you have a bracket at the top, then you have the 170mm fan, and then you have another bracket, and then again 170mm fan. The CPU mode stacks up the fans at the top, and those 2 brackets that cover those kind of empty spaces are at the bottom, both of those. And this kind of directs the airflow much better when we're talking about the default mode directs intake for the GPU at the bottom, and at the top for the CPU, and where the CPU mode actually kind of focuses more the airflow towards your CPU. Now the sizes are 170, 170, 30mm. Speed is from 500 to 1550 RPMs. Airflow is 142.56 CFM. Static pressure is 3.34 millimeters H2O. Noise level is 34.3 decibels. But with the benchmarks and everything running at full load, they weren't that loud as they stated. Now, most likely they weren't running at 1550 RPMs, but regardless of that. Now, the bottom fans, they have flexible location because the 2 reverse fans at the bottom can be also repositioned at the top or below the power supply shroud for vertical GPU mount. This is outstanding, of course. So if you place the fans at the top, you can place 2 hard drive cages at the bottom. But if you want to have more clearance for connections for the GPU cable and similar stuff, and you don't need the hard drive cages, I would definitely suggest placing the fans at the bottom and placing the power supply horizontally or vertically. I don't know how to mention this, but they have two positions of the power supply as well. I'll get to that part later on. But you can mount the fans at the bottom part and get more, let's say, clearance for the cable management here at the bottom part, and that's outstanding. Now these fans are 120 times 120 times 25. Speed goes from 500 to 1900 RPMs. Airflow is 66.9 CFM and static pressure is 1.6 millimeters H2O. Noise is 33.2 decibels. And finally, the rear fan 140, thickness 25, 200 to 1800 RPMs, 81.30 CFM of airflow, and static pressure is 2.4 millimeters H2O with the noise 34.2 decibels. Since I covered all the fans, I want to say one thing. I'm really glad they didn't go with any RGB because wooden and black really fits quite nicely, and I'm really dark wood actually, and I'm really glad they went into this non-RGB version because it gives you options and looks cleaner, looks minimalistic, and I'm really digging the design. That's outstanding. Now, for the front fan support, what you could do is you can place 140 and 120. You have brackets that come in the accessory box, and you can basically just remove the 170 fans, place those brackets, give you an option to mount those 140, 120 as you desire. Speaking of that, we have the possibility to mount at the top 3 120 or 2 140 or up to 360 radiator. On the front, you have the possibility to go with 3 120, 2 140 or 2 170, which are pre-installed. And then at the bottom part of the power supply shroud, you can go with 3 120 fans, 2 are already pre-installed, and at the back 120 or 140, it actually really doesn't matter. Now the two power supply mounting options are that give a flexibility, and I think this is connected to the fans and regarding the hard drive cages, so it gives you kind of more options, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to place the fans at the bottom part of the power supply shroud. Now this dual mounting feature enables users to select the most suitable layout, well, basically depending on their power supply dimensions and preferences for cable management. I do have to admit, this position of the power supply, as I place it, it's much easier to do cable management, without a doubt. Now there are two power buttons, and one is located at the top and one is located at the side, which is kind of cool actually when you think about it, because not everybody's placing their builds on their desk and not everybody's placing them on the floor. And additional to that, what you have here is 3.5 millimeter 4-pole jack for your audio, 2 USB 3.0 and 1 USB 3.2 Type-C 20 gigabit per second. Talking about compatibility and support for the motherboards, it supports ATX and micro ATX motherboards with back connect. And talking about regular size motherboards without back connect, you can go with the ATX, because right here I have the ASRock X870E Taichi, which fits just like a glove without any issues. And yeah, that's quite interesting because you don't have to move that GPU bracket. And since I'm at that GPU anti-sag bracket, it's included. So you can move it backwards a bit, which you already have pre-inserted holes with threads. So you just have to move it left or right depending on the size of the motherboard. But the Taichi motherboard fits without any problems. You don't have to move it from the stock position. The cool thing, at the back you have a thumb screw, you adjust the GPU, place it inside, and it's nicely integrated inside the case, so it doesn't obstruct any visual aspect of anything. Talking about vertical GPU, we're talking about possibility to rotate the back PCI expansion slots, which give you a possibility to actually go with the vertical GPU. And then in that case, I would definitely suggest not removing the fans, but placing them at the bottom, because in that scenario, the GPU in vertical mount gets more airflow with those fans, and that's good. Then you don't have to bother with the side tempered glass, or is it too close or is it not, because it does get additional air just because of those fans. Of course, riser isn't included, so you will have to get that separately. Storage compatibility, we're going with up to 4 3.5-inch hard drives and 2 2.5-inch SSD, which can be mounted behind the motherboard on removable trays. In the power supply shroud compartment, you have 2 removable hard drive cages, which can support up to 6 2.5-inch SSDs, one below the caddy, one 3.5-inch hard drive or 2.5-inch SSD above the caddy, and one 2.5 or one 3.5-inch hard drive SSD above the cage. And in those terms, when we're talking about that, only one hard drive cage is supported when you're placing the power supply in standard mode. Now, there's also one more thing that I would like to mention regarding the motherboard compatibility. You can go with standard ATX, you can go with ETX up to 280 millimeters, or you can go with SSIEB boards that go up to 330 millimeters, because you can actually remove the anti-sag bracket, and that's basically it. For the compatibility in general for all components, we're having GPU length at 380 millimeters at maximum, we're having CPU cooler height at 180 millimeters, radiator can be placed only at the top, but honestly, I think you can manage it on the front as well. I'm not quite sure with those brackets. At the back, we have also one more cool feature, addressable RGB and fan hub with 6 PWM fan headers and 4 5 volts addressable RGB headers. I think that's quite cool. And to sum it all up, when we're talking about specifications and everything all together, we have it in black and white. And the MSRP for black one is $119 and the white one is $124. Honestly, 5 fans, this type of chassis, this type of quality, for that kind of money, I think that's outstanding. I mean, this is definitely, at this moment, my favorite midi-tower chassis. It's not big in terms of comparing it to Lancool 3. It's not any bigger than 207, but still you can pack loads of stuff inside. You can mount loads of storage. You can go with an outstanding airflow, and you can go with 360. Let's be honest, 360 is just quite solid, and yeah, that's great. Now let's quickly run through the benchmarks. Now we have the CPU mode and the standard mode, default mode, that the case comes with the fans mounted as it is. So in AIDA64 Extreme Edition, CPU actually stands in the same bracket when we're talking about thermals. The clock speed is also the same, but the GPU is a bit different, because in the so-called GPU mode, when you take a look at the case, because they changed that name, in CPU mode, GPU, this is ASRock RX 9070 XT Taichi, runs at 57 degrees. But the GPU in that GPU mode, where the fan is lower, the front one, 56 to 57, I would say 56.5. So that's okay. That's okay. And then we go with Cinebench. So the thermals on the CPU, in that CPU mode, clock speed is around 4900, and when we're talking about Cinebench scores, 40,510, something like that. So yeah, that's really good. Benchmarks are outstanding, thermals are great, specifically when we're talking about AMD Ryzen 9 9950 X3D. And then we go with GPU mode. What you get, and you already saw the AIDA64 graph, but Cinebench R23, it starts at 79, it ends at 87, so I would say some sort of an average is 84 degrees. Clock speed is also quite similar. I think this time it is below 4900. And for the Cinebench scores, it is a bit higher, 40,450. Because at the beginning of those 10 runs in average, we had 40,751, 40,911, 40,891. So basically what you get with the GPU mode or the standard mode, you get more airflow through the GPU. That's definitely true. Not that drastically. You're not going to get like 4, 5, 10 degrees. That's totally insane, because why would they create 2 modes if they can just get better cooling for the GPU in general standard mode, right? So it's just a slight improvement for the thermals for the GPU, and that's good. In general, when we take into consideration the benchmarks and everything all together, the clock speed, scores, and everything for the AMD Ryzen 9 9950 X3D are outstanding. And just in general, the price, the performance, and the visual aspect. I totally forgot about the visual aspect, but also the compatibility possibilities with this case just brings an insane PC crazy Best Buy badge. Because, as I stated, this is a MIDI tower chassis. You have 2 positions for the power supply. You have 2 positions for these fans on the power supply shroud. You have a possibility to remove the hard drive cage. They aren't pre-installed, they come in additional accessory box. You have possibility to mount additional fans instead of these 170. You have possibility to remove those fans in terms of swapping them up or down. 120, 140 at the back, 360 at the top, possibility for cable management. I mean, you have to really continue. This case really does bring it, and yeah, it has 140 at the rear, compared to the 207. So I think that's really good. That's really good altogether. So yeah, guys, the link for the Lian Li Lancool 217 in black and white is in the description below. And if you want to add the Galahad 2 Lite, it's also in the description. I just placed the TL fans because they were left on from the last build. So yeah, that's it. Guys, thanks for watching. See you next time in a new video. And don't forget to leave a comment, click the subscribe button, like, and of course, click the notification bell. See you soon. Bye.